Okay, what we're going to do is, I'm going to first do last time.
The 98th commencement exercises of the United States Coast Guard Academy are now convened. Captain Alfred R. Sager, Jr., U.S. Navy, Senior Academy Chaplain, will deliver the invocation. Will the audience please remain standing until the completion of the invocation?
Would you please bow your heads with me? Most loving God, what a special day this is. We pray that we would always remember that you are the Lord of our lives, the captain of our destinies. And so we invoke your continued blessing upon every individual in this company who've come from the length and breadth of this great land to mark the milestone in the lives of these graduates, soon to become officers in the United States Coast Guard. We know that there is much more involved in this commencement exercise than the beautiful symbols, the orderliness, the pageantry. The true and the lasting meaning of this occasion centers in the lives of these gifted young men and women whom you have touched with special talents and now have prepared to take on ever greater responsibilities. We also are aware and would acknowledge today that you have bestowed special gifts of nobility to them, and you have enhanced their character through the influence of their parents and families. We thank you for the homes from which they have come, that have nurtured them in their formative years, equipped them for this distinction, inspired them to excellence, and made it natural for them to want to serve far beyond themselves. We're grateful for this institution. All of us should give thanks for its faculty and staff, where they have been given the opportunity to strengthen the sinews of their minds and learn the basics of their profession. O God, who, like the ocean on which they will serve, are not only vast but near, close to our souls as the lapping waters about the shores of an island, be near them at all times. Temper their reckless abandon into moral courage. Without dampening their youthful spirits, bring the maturity of searching and independent minds, eager for venturesome endeavors, and so lead them, that they might meet the demanding challenges which are awaiting them. And dear Lord, as only you can, give them a generous portion of real satisfaction, of lasting joy and contentment, in the knowledge that they have always done their very, very best. In your holy name we ask it. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the Superintendent of the United States Coast Guard Academy, Rear Admiral Malcolm E. Clark. Good morning. I would like to apologize to our many friends who have perhaps come from far as away as California and watching this ceremony on the closed circuit TV. This is the third year in a row, and perhaps it's going to become a habit that we've had this rain. I'm particularly sorry for Lieutenant Commander Schaefer and all his men in the public works who have worked so hard setting up for this program this year on the lower field. And all I can say is, Tom, better luck next year. We are pleased and honored to have everyone here to witness the 98th commencement exercises of the United States Coast Guard Academy, the graduating and commissioning of the class of 1980. I extend my warmest greetings to our distinguished guests, the parents and families of the graduates, and well-wishers here today. I would like to individually recognize and introduce the distinguished members of the academic community who have come today, and personally thank them for their participation in this ceremony. They each make noteworthy and valuable contributions to academic quality, and we are thus honored by their presence. Please hold your applause until all have been recognized, and I'd like to ask each one to stand when I call his name. Dr. Edna Ward, Professor of Education, Division of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Emerson College in Boston. Dr. Lena Lucietto, Dean, University College, University of Rhode Island. Dr. Richard Gonzalez, Professor of Chemistry, University of Rhode Island. Dr. James L. Baird, Jr., President, Southern Branch of the University of Connecticut. Dr. Charles E. Webb, President, Eastern Connecticut State College. Dr. Robert Weller, President, Mitchell College. Mr. Ronald Wesley Wright, Acting President, Mohegan Community College. And Dr. Robert N. Rue, Founding President of Mohegan Community College, presently on sabbatical as Visiting Professor at Virginia Technical and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia. Could we have a round of hands for our academic guests? We had another distinguished guest who could not be here today, but I'd like to read a letter that I received yesterday from the State of Connecticut Executive Chambers in Hartford, dated May 21st. My best wishes to you who have gathered for the United States Coast Guard Academy's commencement exercises. This is indeed a splendid and truly historic occasion, marking the first graduation of women from this outstanding service academy. For one and all, today is the culmination of many months of dedication and diligent effort. After having weathered 4 years of rigorous education and training, every cadet graduating today is entitled to deep feelings of pride and satisfaction, feelings rooted in the fulfillment of his or her potential for growth and achievement. Each surely has vivid memories of the hard work that was invested in preparation for this important day. Yet armed with the skill and discipline acquired at the Academy, all will go on to exemplify the best America has to offer in the defense of our nation and the ideals for which it stands. It is a distinct pleasure to extend my congratulations to the entire graduating class. I regret that it is not possible for me to join you. May this be a memorable and most significant event for all. Signed, Ella Grasso, Governor of the State of Connecticut. Now is my opportunity to say a few final words to our graduating class. It seems that every class that graduates from this academy takes on a character of its own, one that sets it apart from all others. And certainly you, the class of 1980, are no exception. For among your class are the first 14 women to ever graduate from the United States Coast Guard Academy, and because we are the first service academy to graduate this year, the first one from any service academy of the Armed Forces of the United States. And also among your class are the 140 men who helped make this historic event possible. Each of you did not get here alone. Among all your classmates, both male and female, there was mutual support and help all along the way, from the time you reported in until today. That support, that teamwork will not end. As you will learn, as you work together, and as you come back years from now for your class reunions. Your entire career should be based upon these principles of mutual cooperation, trust, and respect. The faculty and staff hope to have done everything necessary to prepare you for today, to ensure that you, the new officers in the changing Coast Guard, are prepared to meet whatever challenges your careers present. You will leave here today as ensigns, all equal, with an equal opportunity to excel. I am confident that if you approach your new assignment and every subsequent one with confidence and dedication, you will have a satisfying and rewarding career in the service of the Coast Guard and your country. You have every right to be proud today, and we are proud of you. I wish you all the very best of luck. Now it is my distinct honor to introduce our principal speaker today. As you all know, the motto of the Coast Guard is Semper Paratus, always ready. And when it became evident last evening that Walter Cronkite would be unable to be with us today, the Commandant of the Coast Guard showed that he is always prepared and stepped in as our graduation speaker. Admiral Hayes graduated from this academy in 1946. After numerous at-sea positions, he attended the Naval War College in 1960 and then served at Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C., receiving a master's degree in international affairs from George Washington University in 1964. Following duty as Commander of Division II, Squadron 1 in South Vietnam, he returned to Coast Guard headquarters in 1967 in the Search and Rescue Division and later was Chief of the Planning and Evaluation Staff, Office of Boating Safety. From August 1971 to June 1973, he was Commandant of Cadets here at the Coast Guard Academy, and in 1973 was selected for flag rank. He served as Comptroller of the Coast Guard until 1975, and then as Commander of the 17th Coast Guard District in Alaska until 1978. In 1978, he was appointed Commandant of the Coast Guard and promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral, of Admiral. Lucky he's a classmate, or perhaps that's why I said that. We are indeed honored by his presence here today. It is a great pleasure that I introduce our man at the helm, Admiral John B. Hayes.
Not sure whether I should start out by saying Captain Clark or Rear Admiral Clark. Well, Admiral Clark, Mr. Tom Allison, new General Counsel of our Department of Transportation, representing the Secretary here today, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, but most particularly the members of the graduating class of 1980, the young men and women who are soon to join the ranks of our commissioned officers. First, let me assure you, I am not Walter Cronkite. Secondly, I am neither aspiring to nor running for the office of the Vice Presidency of the United States. And I would point out to Admiral Clark that wherever one places blame for events beyond one's control, the responsibility of command may not be delegated, and he unfortunately has no control over the weather, as has been demonstrated over the last 3 years. Mr. Walter Cronkite did ask me to inform your class directly this morning how really sorry he is not to be here and how much he had really planned on being here. Something beyond his control, unfortunately, has kept him in bed at the doctor's direction, and he was told he might not come. He has asked me to tell you that he would consider it an honor to be invited to your 5th reunion or such other early reunion as you might choose, and I urge you to take advantage of that suggestion. Well, as I thought about what I might say this morning, it seems to me that once again I can contemplate how fortunate this nation is to have a national treasure of bright and enthusiastic young men and women. I suspect that if I could recite the remarks of past commandants to graduates of this academy, their charges would have a common thread. They might go something like this: the world is rapidly changing, and to succeed, you must anticipate and be ready for that change. Or, the future is in your hands. You inherit a legacy of fine performance and traditions, which it becomes your duty to perpetuate. Or, there can be no finer testimony to the enduring vitality of our national ethic than to see generation after generation of talented people willing to commit themselves to serving others. A bit heavy, I suppose so. I could exhort you with those challenges as if they were indeed newfound ideas, but I will emphasize that I think they're still valid ideas and continue to be an essential part of the commitment of each New Year's officers. How changeless change really sometimes turns out to be. The only difference between my commissioning and yours is the circumstances under which those challenges are accepted. Regardless of how much we wish it were true, there is little chance that we can again have the comfortable degree of predictability about those things that affect our lives that perhaps once was true a few decades ago. Well, let me identify for you this morning the principal features of the professional environment in which you will find yourselves very shortly. First, I consider that your service is healthy but lean. While we are in need, our success today in the battle of the budget can best be measured in the rather current austere mood of the Congress by how little we've been cut rather than by what we have gained. The Coast Guard enjoys a most enviable reputation among its contemporaries in the international community and among its partners in industry, government, and labor. The future prospects for growth throughout this coming decade, I think, are good. As economics and technology pave the way for development of the much-needed and vast wealth of the outer continental shelf, the need to protect life, property, and the environment in that endeavor will mean new demands on Coast Guard professionalism and its capital plan. Obviously, there will be greater Coast Guard presence at sea. However, we will probably never have, nor indeed should we expect, all the resources we think we need. This will test your ability to manage effectively and make responsible resource decisions. Moreover, recognizing the pace of what is going on around you and learning to deal with it will be of paramount importance to you and to the Coast Guard. And I can think of no better way to exemplify this point than to describe for you just very briefly this morning what causes me so much pride in the way in which our people are performing in the Straits of Florida. From the district commander, who is leading that operation superbly, to the lowest seaman or airman on the ships, our aircraft, and our boats, and ashore, those who are supporting those operations. Our people are performing professionally. You indeed, as you become a part of this kind of thing, and the future will hold many more similar challenges for our organization, you can share in that pride. 2 weeks ago, I had the great privilege of having breakfast in the White House with the President. I mention this not to indicate that I'm important, but rather the perception of how important the Coast Guard is to the President's decisions with respect to the Cuban exodus. Our people have been working directly with heads of agencies and White House staff in developing the various policies that affect our operations. Time and again, our organization has been singled out with respect to the quality of its performance and the superb way in which we plan and execute. So I pass this on to you as a new graduating class as something that not only you can be proud of, but can aspire to. Now, the second point I would make this morning is that The finely tuned organization which you enter was created by a most precious resource that has been somewhat placed in jeopardy, and that is our experienced people. A combination of an intensely competitive labor market, national apathy toward the military establishment and government in general, and inflation have all made retention of experienced people very difficult. And don't you believe for one moment that the pay of our people isn't foremost in their minds at the present time. I think it's a sad commentary when about 14% of our enlisted personnel qualify for food stamps. Fortunately, at any rate, through a whole series of actions within our authority, we have been able at least partially to offset these effects. After dropping to really dangerous levels, first-term reenlistments have returned to a level at least that we can live with reasonably. However, I'm not satisfied yet that second and third-term reenlistments are sufficient for us to meet the challenges of this decade. Now, why do I point this out to you, ladies and gentlemen? Because your most serious challenge will be to protect that professionalism through good leadership, by learning to be responsive to the needs of your people, and by being innovative managers. If I could give you any wise counsel that I would place perhaps more importantly than any other, it would be you must learn to know your people, find out what their needs are, what their aspirations are, and lead them wisely. We simply cannot afford the costs of reduced effectiveness, personnel motion, and accelerated training that are caused by having our internal mass fall below critical. Thirdly, there will be an increasing need in your complicated world to mediate conflicting interests and to make very difficult decisions. Nowhere else in federal service do so many young people, young commissioned officers, young petty officers, have the amount of responsibility that our junior officers and petty officers are asked to bear. Most of you will be in position to deal with the public we serve on a daily basis. Our effectiveness and our reputation is in your hands, and this will occur not long after your graduation. If you are to act responsibly, you must concentrate on becoming professional, learning how to listen, how to be reasonable, and how to compromise through good judgment. By definition, there is something for everyone in compromise. On the other hand, you should also remember that anyone who says he's willing to meet you halfway is usually standing on the midfield stripe when he says it. Remember, too, that although compromise and decision may be required, your personal integrity must be unwavering. Without personal ethics above reproach, you should be prepared to fail. Honesty with yourself and your boss, loyalty to your organization and its people, and adherence to Christian Judaic principles should be your standards. Nothing else has produced what we are, and nothing less can meet the challenge before you. Your service life is simply a matter of concentration on personal objectives. You are what you set out to be. You are a composite of the things you say, the books you read, the thoughts you think, and the company you keep, and the things particularly you desire to become. Great men and women are those who find that what they ought to do and what they want to do are the same thing. For you young women who are graduating today, obviously a special note of recognition. You have survived. You have performed, both, particularly initially, I'm sure in a somewhat hostile environment. That likewise is the case occasionally out in our service, and it's better to tell it like it is than to act as if it didn't exist. We have not yet in the Coast Guard solved all our sexual harassment problems, and I, for one, certainly won't tolerate them when I see them or identify them, and you should not either. At the same time, I think I can report truthfully to you that at least from a policy viewpoint, the Coast Guard in many respects is leading the way in trying to provide equal opportunity and responsibility for our young women. I see opportunity everywhere and none basically restricted. Having said that, in general, I wish each of you smooth sailing and urge that in thinking about my rather brief remarks this morning, that you concentrate on that idea of professionalism and leadership and assuring the quality of life for our people, without whom the Coast Guard most certainly cannot exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Admiral Hayes, for certainly your most timely and challenging message for the class of 1980. At this time, I'd like to present the United States Coast Guard Band in a musical interlude.
On behalf of all of us, I would like to thank Lieutenant Buckley and the members of the Coast Guard Band as you have done. Thank you. The degree of Bachelor of Science will now be conferred by the Superintendent. The class of 1980, please rise. Admiral Clark, I have the honor to present to you the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science. They have been examined by the faculty and approved by the Academic Council. I request that you, by your official act, confer on them this degree.
Thank you, Captain White. It'll be a pleasure. By virtue of the authority vested in me, I now confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Science and admit you to all its rights and privileges. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
The class of 1980 will now take the oath of office. This oath of office will be given by Admiral John B. Hayes. Class of 1980, please rise.
Thank you very much, Captain Kelly. Raise your right hand. Having been appointed to the grade of ensign in the United States Coast Guard, do you solemnly swear that you shall support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you shall bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you shall well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God. Ensigns, please be seated. Now, the program calls for me to issue greetings to the class. Since I really have already done so in my remarks, I'll simply say to each and every one of you how pleased once again I am to participate in this commencement exercise, to administer your oath, and to welcome you aboard. Glad to have you aboard.
Commissions as ensign will be presented by the Commandant. Degrees of Bachelor of Science will be presented by the Superintendent. Captain James C. Irwin, Commandant of Cadets, will introduce the graduating class. The audience is requested to refrain from applauding until the end of the presentation.
Robert Eugene Acker. Michael Orville Aholt, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, Raymond E. Aholt, Lieutenant Commander, United States Coast Guard, retired. Franklin Ronald Albero. Tracy Scott Allen, graduating with honors. George Aloysius Assing, Jr. Miguel Sabanyan Asuncion. Dean Terry Baldus. Robert Andrew Ball, Jr. Jeffrey Harold Barker, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, Harold Barker, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, retired. Patrick William Barnes, graduating with honors. William Dale Baumgartner, graduating with high honors. William Scott Benton. Jonathan Paul Benvenuto. Brian Francis Binney, graduating with honors. J. James Brown, graduating with honors. Jeff Robert Brown. Luke Brown. Michael James Brown. Randolph Maury Brown IV, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, Randolph M. Brown III, Colonel, United States Marine Corps. Joseph William Brubaker, graduating with honors. Richard Blake Burt, graduating with high honors. Jean Marie Butler. Austin Francis Colwood. Raymond Haljamar Carlson, Jr., graduating with honors. Stephen Wade Carman, graduating with high honors. Kevin James Kavanaugh. Carrie Dennis Christopher. John Gilbert Klein, graduating with honors. Daniel John Conti. Jeremiah James Andrew Cronin. James Francis Culver. Robert William Danahay. His commission will be presented by his father, Philip J. Danahay, Captain, United States Coast Guard. Robert Eugene Day, Jr. Jeffrey Allen Durishberg. Lawrence Edward Dinkler. Susan Kathleen Donner, graduating with high honors. Jack Nicholas Dumovich. Mary Jane East, her commission will be presented by her father, Kenneth E. East, Major, United States Army, retired. Robert Bruce Erdington. Matthew Derek Edwards. John Michael Fidelio, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, Salvador J. Fidelio, Master Sergeant, United States Air Force, retired. Tim Lee Fields, graduating with honors. Michael John Pajalka. Michelle Fitzpatrick, graduating with high honors. David Edward Flesher. Kenneth George Forstmeyer, graduating with high honors. Clark Davis Fowler. His commission will be presented by his father, Odell Fowler, Senior Chief Petty Officer, United States Coast Guard. Jeffrey Ronald Freeman, graduating with honors. Theodore Francis Gandy. Michael Claude Gazzoni, graduating with honors. Stephen Brian Glenn. David Francis Goslin, graduating with high honors. Ian Grunther. John Kevin Gunther. Kathy Ann Hamblett. Her commission will be presented by her father, Russell E. Hamblett, Jr., Master Chief Petty Officer, United States Coast Guard. Stephen Clay Hargis. Harry Edgar Haynes III, graduating with high honors. George Harold Heinz, graduating with honors. David Stephen Hill, graduating with honors. Robert Michael Hilpert. Stephen Porter Howe. His commission will be presented by his father, Archibald B. Howe, Captain, United States Coast Guard, retired. Michael David Hudson. His commission will be presented by his father, William M. Hudson, Senior Master Sergeant, United States Air Force, retired. Michael Dean Inman. Mark Allen Jackson, graduating with honors. Leroy Anthony Jacobs, Jr. Linda Johansson, graduating with high honors. Robert John Jones. Craig Mark Juckness, graduating with honors. Victor Kent Kelly. George Kevin Kerr, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, Richard G. Kerr, Captain, United States Coast Guard. Brian Stanley Kogut. Russell Dean Kroll, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, Larry D. Kroll, Colonel, United States Air Force. Keith Bernard Letourneau, graduating with honors. Joseph Charles Litchimer. Michael Raynor Lindsay. Christopher Kevin Lockwood. Ronald Joseph Lokaitis. Carl Gordon Long. James David Mays, graduating with honors. William Roy Marhofer, graduating with honors. Joanne McCaffrey, her commission will be presented by her father, Edwin K. McCaffrey, Captain, National Oceanographic Atmospheric Agency. Robert Francis McCaffrey, graduating with honors. James Albert McEwen. Brett Kevin Magoo. Stephen Eugene Mailing, graduating with high honors. J. D. Millot. Christopher Dalton Mills. Gregory Andrew Mitchell III. His commission will be presented by his father, George A. Mitchell, Jr., Commander, United States Navy, retired. Louis Richard Montello, Jr., graduating with high honors. Matthew Kenneth Mumford. Richard M. Nakara. James Leroy Nelson, Jr. Michael Patrick Nerino. Michael Alfred Nusel, graduating with honors. Jeffrey Thomas Noblet, graduating with honors. Stanley James O'Laughlin, Jr. His commission will be presented by his father, Stanley J. O'Laughlin, Major, United States Army. Christopher Paul Otto. Douglas Roger Patterson. Frederick Daniel Pendleton. Ralph Andrew Peterite, graduating with honors. Timothy Patrick Powers. James Calvin Prysick, graduating with high honors, first in his class. Christine Janet Quedens. Michael Eugene Raber. His commission will be presented by Nick Nicholson, First Sergeant, United States Army, retired. William Walter Ramos, graduating with honors. David John Regan. Paul Joseph Reed. William Henry Edgener Reynolds, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, William H. Reynolds, Captain, United States Air Force, retired. George John Resendiz, graduating with honors. Daniel Norbert Ream, graduating with honors. His commission will be presented by his father, N. Ream, Chief Master Sergeant, United States Air Force. Baird Stewart Ritter. Joseph Francis Rodriguez. His commission will be presented by his father, Eston J. Rodriguez, Major, United States Air Force, retired.